Hey guys, in this video we're looking at finding the volumes of cubes, prisms, and pyramids. We're using all the same vocabulary that we've been using along and along. Looking at prism, you'll remember in the last set of notes that I told you the volume for a prism is going to be equal to base times height. And then you would have to look at whatever base that you have, in this case it would be a rectangle, and then substitute in whatever the formula is for the area of the base. And then looking at the formula for a pyramid, anything that comes to a point is going to be 1/3 base times height. And then looking at a cube, with the cube we're still using that prism formula, so volume is equal to base times height. And if we plug in values, we know this side has a value that's going to be the same as this side is going to have the same as the value as that side. So if we plug in values for those, the volume, the base is going to be side times side, and the height is going to be side. So when we're looking at volume of a cube, it's going to be easiest to think of it as side cubed. And whenever you do these, your volume that you're working with is always going to be cubed. So if we try out some examples. Looking at the first one, solve for volume, round the answer to the nearest hundredth. So looking at this one, all of the sides are the same length. So we know this one's a cube. And the formula for the cube is volume is going to be equal to side cubed. So volume is going to be equal to, the side is 6. So 6 cubed is going to be 216. Volume is going to be equal to 216. And our units are millimeters cubed. Now when you're putting this into the calculator, you're doing 6. And the way you get the cubed is there's a to the button. So to the third, and that'll give you the 216. If you're doing it on some scientific calculators, you'll have a y to the x button, and it'll look like that. If you have trouble, try it on your calculator, see if it works, and if you have trouble with it, let me know. Looking at this next one, we know that's a prism because it doesn't come to a point, and looking at the bases, the two parallel sides, we know it's a rectangular prism. So with it being a prism, we know automatically we're going to use the formula volume is equal to base times height. We've identified the base as a rectangle, and we know the area for a rectangle is equal to base times height. So volume is going to be equal, and notice I'm using a lowercase base, b, for the base of the rectangle. So volume is going to be equal to base times height times height. So volume is going to be equal to, the base for that one is going to be 9 times 13 times 11. So volume is going to be equal to 1,287, and our units are meters cubed. And again, when you're working with volume, your units are always going to be cubed. Looking at the next one, this one's going to be a prism. It doesn't come to a point, so it's a prism. And then if we look for the bases, the two sides that are parallel, we have triangles, so it's a triangular prism. So working with a prism, we know our volume is going to be equal to the base of the prism times the height. And we've said that our base is a triangle. So for the capital B, we're going to substitute in the formula for the area of a triangle, and that's 1/2 base times height times height. So volume is going to be equal to 1/2. The base of the triangle is 7, so 1/2 times 7 times the height of the triangle is going to be 4. And then the height, and I know it goes sideways, but that's still the height of your prism, is going to be 10. So if we multiply all those together, 1/2 times 7 times 4 times 10, and that'll give us 140 yards squared. So that's what you're looking at for the basic cubes and rectangles and triangles for prisms. Now looking at some pyramids, the first example that they give us, we look at the base and we notice that the base has the same exact sides. So this is going to be a square pyramid. So by knowing that we have a pyramid, volume is going to be equal to 1/3 times the base times height. We've said that the base is a square, so area of a square, 1/3 times side squared times the height of the pyramid. And when you're looking for the height, this needs to be a 90-degree angle. So volume is going to be equal to 1/3, and then the side length is 11 squared times the height is 13.8. So volume is going to be equal to, and when you put it in your calculator, when you do the 1/3, you're going to want to put the 1/3 in parentheses to tell the calculator that's all one value, times, and I'm going to put 11 squared in its own set of parentheses to tell the calculator that goes together, times 13.8. And that'll give us a volume of 556.6, and our units are feet cubed. And if these sides weren't of equal length, let's say that this one was 13 and this was 11, the volume that we would use would be 1/3, still base times height, but then it wouldn't be a square pyramid anymore, it would be a rectangular pyramid. So we would use volume is equal to 1/3 base times height for that one. So just be careful and watch what the base is and use the area formula for that one. And looking at this pyramid, if you look at the base, it only has 3 sides, which makes it be a triangular pyramid. So we know when we're working with the pyramid, volume is going to be equal to 1/3 base times height. And in this case, we figured that the base is a triangle, so we substitute in the formula for the area of a triangle, 1/2 base times height times height. So this whole value right there in the parentheses, we substituted in for the base of the shape. So we're doing 1/3 times 1/2, and the base for our triangle is going to be 6.3 times 8 times the height for the whole pyramid is going to be 10.4. So we're doing 1/3 times 1/2 times 6.3 times 8 times 10.4. And that's going to give us a volume of 87.36, and our units are feet cubed. So that's how to find volume for different 3D shapes. But they could also give you problems where they give you volume, and from that volume ask you to solve for a side. So looking at the first problem that they give us to solve, we've got all the sides of the 3D shape are the same. So that makes this be a cube. So automatically we want to be thinking of the formula volume is equal to side squared is the formula that I gave you for a cube. But in this case it's R. So if you want to replace the S with an R, that's just fine. And these should be cubed, not squared. So then we're looking volume. They tell us that the volume is 4,096 cubic millimeters. So we can take this V and replace it with the 4,096 is going to be equal to R cubed. But we're not interested in what R cubed is. We want to know just what R is all by itself. So just like whenever we have a square, to undo the square, we take the square root. To undo a cube, we take the cubed root. So here we would take the cubed root of both sides. And you write a 3 in front of the radical symbol to tell people that it's a cubed. And the way that you type it into this calculator is, I think there's in math. Yep, if you go under math, you'll see the cubed root, and you just go the cubed root of 4,096, and that'll give us 16. So there we've got R is equal to 16. If you've got one of the scientific calculators, with these, a lot of times you're going to do the 3 out in front, and then you'll hit the y to the x button, the cubed root of, we did 4,096, and there's your 16 there. Try it on your calculator, see and make sure you get 16. If you have trouble with it, let me know and I'll show you how it works. So the answer for this problem is going to be 16 millimeters. And we were solving for the side of a cube, so it's just going to be regular old millimeters, no squared, no cubed. Looking at the next one, this one is a prism, because we don't have a point, which means we have to have 2 parallel bases. And if we look at the bottom or the base, it's going to be a rectangle, so it's a rectangular prism. So knowing that it's a prism, we've got volume is equal to base times height, and our base is a rectangle, so volume is going to be equal to base times height for the base times height for the 3D part of it. So volume is going to be equal to, if we start replacing values that we know, they tell us that the volume in this problem is 204.4 cubic inches. So instead of V, we can write 204.4 is going to be equal to, and they tell us the base is going to be 4 times 7 times C. They don't tell us what the height is, so we're just going to write it as times C. So we're going to have 204.4 is going to be equal to 4 times 7 is 28C. So we want to know what the side C is. So divide both sides by 28. And so C is going to be equal to 7.3, and our units are inches. So that value right there is going to be equal to 7.3. Looking at another problem that they could give you to work with. Looking at this one is also still a prism. And if you look at the bases, it's going to be a triangular prism. So prism means volume is going to be equal to base times height, where the base in this case is a triangle. So if we replace the formula for the area of a triangle for base, volume is going to be equal to 1/2 times base times height. So that'll be for the area of the triangle times height for the area of the 3D figure. So for looking volume, they tell us in this problem it's 360 is going to be equal to 1/2 times the base, and this is for the triangle. The base for the triangle is 10. The height of the triangle is the part that we don't know, and they leave it as Z, times the height of the prism is going to be 9. So if we simplify everything we have there, 360 is equal to half of 10, or 1/2 times 10 is 5, times 9 is 45 Z. So we want to solve for Z and get it by itself on one side. So divide both sides by 45. And that's going to give us 8 meters for our value for Z. So there's a couple examples where I show you, if they give you the volume, how to solve for a side. We also did several examples for whenever we're given a prism and how to solve for the volume of a prism. And then a couple examples for when you given a pyramid, how you solve for the volume of a pyramid. And then we talked about the basic formulas and how those work. If you have any questions, make sure to write them down on your paper and ask me when you get to class.